Be nice, okay?
I always am.
Listen to your teacher.
Only if you smile more. Oops, sorry. It's okay.
Noah and Ha-eun had only known each other for 3 days, but they already acted like best friends. Their teachers couldn't explain why the two children were inseparable. They laughed at the same jokes, finished each other's sentences, and even had the same habit of tilting their heads whenever they were confused. What no one noticed was that every day, as school ended, the two children walked toward opposite gates. On one side, Noah ran into the waiting arms of his mother, Amina Cole. On the other, Ha-eun rushed toward her father, Jang Tae-jun. The two adults stood less than 50 meters apart. Yet 6 years after their heartbreaking divorce, they still hadn't seen each other. Fate had brought their children together first. And those two 6-year-olds were about to uncover a family secret that neither parent had the courage to face. By the time they did, Noah and Ha-eun would make one promise to each other. No matter what it takes, we're going to bring our mommy and daddy back together. But before we uncover how this heartbreaking family was torn apart, take a second to like this video, subscribe, like, and tell me in the comments. Do you think true love deserves a second chance? Now, let's go back 6 years earlier, to the day everything changed. 6 years earlier, long before Noah and Ha-eun ever made that promise beneath the cherry blossom trees, there was a time when their family was complete. Amina Cole and Jang Tae-jun weren't just husband and wife. They were best friends. Although Tae-jun was one of South Korea's youngest billionaire businessmen, the world only knew the powerful executive who dominated boardrooms and negotiated billion-dollar deals. At home, he was simply a devoted husband who treasured every moment with the woman he loved. Every evening, no matter how busy his schedule became, he returned home before dinner. The moment he stepped through the front door, he would loosen his tie, smile at Amina, and gently place both hands on her growing belly. "How are my little champions today?" he would ask with excitement. Almost instantly, one of the babies would kick. Amina laughed every single time. "I think this one already knows your voice." Then another tiny kick followed. "There goes the second one," Tae-jun said proudly. "They're already competing." The two of them would burst into laughter. Those simple evenings became their favorite memories. Every hospital appointment felt like another celebration. They listened to two tiny heartbeats. They watched blurry ultrasound images that somehow looked perfect to them. They spent weekends painting the nursery themselves because Amina refused to let professional designers decorate the room. "I want our babies to grow up surrounded by things we made with our own hands," she told him. So Tae-jun happily traded expensive business suits for paint-stained overalls. Together, they assembled 2 white cribs. They folded tiny baby clothes. They argued playfully over which stuffed animals belonged on which crib. Late at night, they sat quietly in the nursery, imagining the future. "I wonder who they'll look like," Amina whispered. Tae-jun smiled. "I hope they get your smile." "And your patience," he laughed. "I don't have patience. You do with me." He kissed her forehead. "That's because you're my favorite person." Life couldn't have felt more perfect. Their twins were due in just 10 weeks. Neither of them imagined those 10 weeks would never come. One rainy evening, Amina was setting the dinner table when a sharp pain suddenly ripped through her stomach. She froze. Another pain came, much stronger. The plate slipped from her hands and shattered across the floor. Tae-jun rushed from the living room. "Amina!" She grabbed his arm, breathing heavily. "Something's wrong." Before either of them could react, warm fluid soaked through her dress. Fear instantly replaced every ounce of happiness. Without saying another word, Tae-jun helped her into the car. Rain hammered against the windshield as he drove through the streets of Seoul faster than he ever had before. His hands tightened around the steering wheel. "Stay with me." "I'm trying," Amina whispered through tears. Within minutes, they arrived at the hospital. Doctors and nurses rushed her toward the operating room. "Emergency cesarean. 30-week twin pregnancy. Prepare the neonatal team." The operating room doors slammed shut. Taejun was left standing alone in the hallway. For the first time in his life, money meant nothing. Power meant nothing. Status meant nothing. The only thing that mattered was the woman and two tiny babies fighting for their lives behind those doors. Minutes stretched into hours. Every time a doctor walked past, he stood hopefully. Every time they kept walking, his heart sank again. Finally, the doors opened. A doctor approached him. "Mr. Jang." He could barely speak. "My wife. Mrs. Cole is stable." Relief flooded through him. "And the babies?" The doctor's expression became more serious. "They're alive." His shoulders relaxed. "But they were born 10 weeks premature." Silence. "They're both in critical condition." A few moments later, 2 incubators rolled past him. Inside each one lay a baby so tiny they barely seemed real. One weighed less than 1.5 kilograms. The other was only slightly heavier. Tiny oxygen tubes covered their faces. Monitors beeped constantly beside them. Taejun reached toward the glass. "They're so small." The nurse smiled gently. "But they're fighters." Several hours later, Amina finally woke up. Her voice was barely audible. "My babies." The nurse held her hand. "They're alive." Tears immediately rolled down her cheeks. "I want to see them." The next morning, doctors gathered both parents inside a consultation room. No one smiled. The silence alone told them something was wrong. The lead neonatologist took a slow breath. "Both babies require advanced neonatal intensive care." Amina squeezed Taejun's hand. "We'll do whatever it takes." The doctor nodded. "Unfortunately, our hospital has only one advanced isolation bed available." Neither parent understood. The second baby must be transferred immediately to another specialist hospital. Amina stared in disbelief. "You mean?" The doctor nodded sadly. "They have to be separated." "No." Her voice cracked. "They've been together since the day they were conceived." "I'm so sorry." Neither parent wanted to make that decision. Neither parent ever should have had to. But there wasn't another choice. The transfer happened that same afternoon. Tiny Noah was placed inside a specialized neonatal ambulance and taken across Seoul to another hospital. Little Ha-eun remained where she was. Watching the ambulance doors close felt like someone tearing their hearts into 2 pieces. From that day forward, Amina and Taejun lived between hospitals. They survived on coffee. They slept in waiting rooms. They memorized oxygen levels instead of meal times. The nursery they had lovingly prepared remained empty. Weeks passed. The stress slowly consumed them. They stopped laughing. They stopped talking. Every conversation became another discussion about test results, medication, and survival. Then came the misunderstanding that changed everything. One afternoon, Noah's condition suddenly worsened. Doctors called Amina immediately. She rushed across the city without hesitation. At the very same time, Ha-eun needed an emergency procedure. Taejun stayed beside his daughter's incubator. Neither of them knew what the other was facing. Hours later, exhausted and emotionally broken, they finally met in the hospital corridor. "You weren't there," Amina whispered. "I couldn't leave Ha-eun, and I couldn't leave Noah." Both were right. But neither could see beyond their own fear. Grief turned into frustration. Frustration became silence. Silence slowly became distance. The couple who once dreamed together now barely spoke. Even after both babies grew stronger and were finally discharged from intensive care, the damage had already been done. Arguments became more frequent. Every painful memory reopened old wounds. Every conversation ended the same way. Neither blamed the children. They blamed themselves. Eventually, they reached the decision neither had ever imagined: divorce. It wasn't because they had stopped loving each other. It was because they no longer knew how to carry the unbearable weight of everything they had lost together. The custody arrangement was heartbreaking. Amina would raise Noah. Taejun would raise Ha-eun. Each parent believed they were making the least painful choice for their children. As they walked away that final day, neither of them realized they had also separated 2 twins who had never been meant to live apart. For 6 long years, Noah grew up believing he was an only child. Ha-un believed exactly the same. Neither knew the truth, but fate had been quietly waiting. And 6 years later, it brought brother and sister back together in the hallway of an elementary school. The moment Noah and Ha-un met, something neither of them could explain drew them together. It wasn't just that they looked alike. It wasn't just that they laughed at the same jokes. Being together simply felt natural. Within days, they had become inseparable. If Noah was reading during recess, Ha-un sat beside him. If Ha-un was chosen for a classroom activity, Noah somehow ended up on the same team. Their teacher, Mrs. Kim, smiled every time she looked at them. "I've never seen two children become best friends this quickly," she said one afternoon. "They're like two halves of the same person." She had no idea how true those words really were. As the weeks passed, the similarities became impossible to ignore. They answered questions at the same time. Whenever one became confused, the other tilted their head in exactly the same way. Even their favorite lunch was identical. Their classmates loved teasing them. "Are you two secretly twins?" The classroom burst into laughter. Noah laughed too. "I wish." Ha-un grinned. That would actually be fun. Neither child realized they had just laughed at the truth. Every afternoon after school, they walked together toward the front courtyard before separating at the fork in the pathway. Noah always turned left. Ha-un always turned right. "See you tomorrow. Don't forget your homework." At the left gate, Amina Cole waited beneath the cherry blossom trees. The moment Noah saw her, he sprinted into her arms. "Mom!" She hugged him tightly. "Someone had a wonderful day." "I did. Ha-un and I built the tallest block tower in class." Amina smiled. "You really like this new friend, don't you?" "I think she's my best friend." Less than 50 meters away, at the opposite gate, Jang Tae-jun stood beside his black luxury sedan. Ha-un ran straight into his arms. "Daddy, how was school?" "I made another drawing with Noah today." Tae-jun chuckled. "I've been hearing a lot about this Noah, because he's the best." Neither Amina nor Tae-jun realized they were standing less than 50 meters apart. Parents, buses, and rows of blooming cherry blossom trees kept them from seeing one another. Fate had brought them back to the same place. But it wasn't time. Not yet. A week later, Mrs. Kim announced a new assignment. "Next Friday is Family Day. I want each of you to make a family poster. Bring your favorite family photograph tomorrow." The children cheered. That evening, Noah searched through old photo albums with Amina. Most of the pictures showed birthdays, picnics, and school events. Then a loose photograph slipped from one of the albums. Before Amina could reach it, Noah picked it up. A handsome Korean man stood beside his mother in wedding clothes. "Mom!" Amina's smile disappeared. "Who's he?" After a long silence, she answered softly, "That's your father." Noah studied the picture. "He looks kind." "He is. Then, why doesn't he live with us?" Amina looked toward the window. "We loved each other very much. What happened?" She took a slow breath. Life became difficult. Noah didn't completely understand, but he understood enough to know the question had hurt her. Across Seoul, Ha-un was searching old albums with Tae-jun. She lifted a wedding photograph of a beautiful black woman. "Daddy, who's she?" He sat beside her. "That's your mother. She's beautiful." A faint smile crossed his face. "She really is." "Do you miss her?" The question caught him by surprise. After several seconds, he quietly answered, "Every single day." The following morning, both children proudly placed their family photographs on their desks. As Noah looked toward Ha-un, he froze. Ha-un froze too. Each slowly looked from their own photograph to the others. Noah blinked. "Ha-un, yeah? Your dad. Looks exactly like my dad." She stared at his picture. "And your mom? Looks exactly like my mom." Mrs. Kim noticed the silence and walked over. She looked carefully at both photographs. Then she looked again. The color slowly drained from her face. The couple in both pictures were exactly the same people. Before she could speak, another teacher called from the hallway. "Mrs. Kim, we need you for a moment." She hesitated before stepping outside. The instant she left, Noah lowered his voice. "This can't be a coincidence." Ha-yoon nodded. "Our parents know each other. They have to." After school, they sat beneath their favorite cherry blossom tree. The two photographs rested between them on the bench. "My mom never smiles like she does in this picture anymore," Noah whispered. Ha-yoon looked down at hers. "My dad doesn't either." Silence settled between them. Then Noah looked up. What if they just had a really big fight? Ha-yoon thought for a moment. Maybe. What if nobody ever helped them make up? She remembered something her grandmother always said. When people care about each other, sometimes they're too hurt to say they're sorry. Noah's eyes brightened. "Then maybe we can help them." Ha-yoon smiled. "You mean, bring them back together?" He nodded. She held out her little finger. "No matter what happens, we don't give up." Noah hooked his pinky around hers. No matter what. Neither child realized they weren't trying to reunite two old friends. They were trying to bring back together a mother and father who still loved each other far more than either of them had ever admitted. And the very first step in their secret plan would begin the next morning. The next morning, Noah and Ha-yoon arrived at school earlier than usual. Neither of them could stop thinking about the photographs. The more they looked at them, the more impossible the coincidence became. The same man, the same woman, the same wedding, the same smiles. Yet somehow, they were growing up in completely different homes. "There has to be an explanation," Noah whispered. Ha-yoon nodded. "And we're going to find it." And that afternoon, the two young detectives began carrying out the first step of their secret plan. Step 1. Find out if their parents still remembered each other. When school ended, Noah hugged Ha-yoon goodbye before running toward Amina. As they walked toward the car, he asked as casually as he could, "Mom, yes? Do you still have any friends in Seoul?" Amina smiled. "A few. What about Korean friends?" She looked at him curiously. "Of course. Do you know anyone named Jang Tae-jun?" The smile disappeared from her face. For several seconds, she simply stood there. "Why are you asking that?" "Oh, no reason. I just heard the name at school." Amina forced a small smile. "Yes, I knew someone by that name a long time ago." "Knew?" She looked away. "That was a very long time ago." She opened the car door. "Come on, sweetheart." But Noah noticed something. His mother's eyes looked wetter than they had only moments earlier. Meanwhile, across the campus, Ha-yoon climbed into her father's car. "Daddy? Do you know someone called Amina Cole?" Se-jun's hands tightened around the steering wheel. For a brief moment, he forgot to start the engine. "Where did you hear that name?" "At school." Silence filled the car. Finally, he answered quietly, "Yes, I knew her." "Were you friends?" A faint smile appeared on his face. "She was much more than that." "What happened?" He stared through the windshield. "Life happened." The answer confused Ha-yoon. Adults always seemed to blame life whenever they didn't want to explain something. That night, both children wrote everything they had learned inside a small notebook they secretly called the Friendship Investigation. Noah wrote, "Mom knows Ha-yoon's dad." Ha-yoon wrote, "Dad knows Noah's mom." Together they added one conclusion. Our parents are pretending they don't know each other. The following Friday, Family Day finally arrived. Parents filled the school auditorium. Children proudly displayed their family posters. Noah kept looking toward the entrance. Ha-yoon did the same. "Maybe today's the day," Noah whispered. "Maybe." Amina arrived first. She helped Noah straighten his tie before taking a seat. A few minutes later, Tae-jun entered through another doorway with Ha-yoon. Neither parent noticed the other. Teachers directed families to opposite sides of the auditorium. The children exchanged disappointed looks. "So close," Noah sighed. Ha-yoon refused to give up. "I have an idea." During the class presentation, each child walked onto the stage one by one. When Noah's turn came, he smiled nervously. "This is my family." He pointed toward Amina. "My mom is the bravest person I know." Amina smiled proudly. Then Ha-hyun walked onto the stage. "This is my family." She pointed toward Taejun. "My dad is the strongest person I know." The audience applauded. Then Ha-hyun looked at Noah. He looked back at her. Without warning, both children walked to the center of the stage and stood side by side. Mrs. Kim frowned in confusion. This wasn't rehearsed. Noah took a deep breath. "My best friend is Ha-hyun." Ha-hyun nodded. "And Noah is my best friend." The audience smiled. Then Noah asked the question that changed everything. "If our parents already know each other, why don't they ever smile together anymore?" The entire auditorium fell silent. Amina looked toward the stage. Taejun looked up at exactly the same moment. For the first time in 6 years, their eyes met. Time seemed to stop. The noise around them disappeared. The applause faded. Neither of them saw the audience anymore. They only saw each other. 6 years of heartbreak, 6 years of regret, 6 years of unanswered questions, all returned in a single heartbeat. Amina's eyes filled with tears. Taejun couldn't move. The children smiled hopefully. They thought everything would be all right now. Instead, Amina quietly stood up. Without saying a word, she walked out of the auditorium. Noah's smile disappeared. "Mom?" Taejun instinctively took a step after her, but years of guilt stopped him. He stood frozen. Ha-hyun looked up at him. "Daddy, aren't you going after her?" He couldn't answer. Mrs. Kim quickly ended the presentation, while teachers gently guided the confused parents and students outside. Noah found Amina sitting alone beneath a cherry blossom tree near the parking lot. She quickly wiped away her tears before he reached her. "Mom, I'm okay." "No, you're crying." She hugged him tightly. Sometimes, grown-ups carry pain for much longer than they should. Across the campus, Ha-hyun asked her father the same question. "Do you still love her?" Taejun closed his eyes. There was no point pretending anymore. "I never stopped." Those words changed everything. The next morning, Noah and Ha-hyun met beneath their favorite cherry blossom tree. Neither of them smiled. "Our plan didn't work," Noah whispered. Ha-hyun slowly shook her head. "No, it just showed us the truth." "What truth?" She looked at him with determined eyes. "They still love each other." Noah thought about everything they had seen. The tears, the silence, the way their parents looked at each other. Then he smiled. "If they still love each other, then we haven't lost." Ha-hyun held out her little finger. "We try again?" Noah hooked his finger around hers. "We keep trying." Neither child realized. They were only one step away from discovering the biggest secret of all. The reason they looked alike, the reason they felt connected, the reason fate had brought them together. Very soon, they would discover they weren't just best friends. They were brother and sister. The following Monday, Noah and Ha-hyun arrived at school carrying more questions than answers. Neither of them could stop thinking about what had happened on Family Day. Their parents had looked at each other with so much emotion. There had been no anger, no hatred, only sadness and love. "There's still something we're missing," Noah whispered during recess. Ha-hyun nodded. "If we can find out what happened 6 years ago, maybe we can fix it." That afternoon, Mrs. Kim called the two children into her classroom after the other students had gone home. She looked at them for a long moment before speaking. "I've been thinking about those photographs." The children sat quietly. "I also looked through your school registration records." Noah and Ha-hyun exchanged nervous glances. Mrs. Kim opened 2 folders. "You were both born on the same day." The children nodded. "We know. You were both born at Seoul National University Hospital." "We know." She took a slow breath. "And according to these records, both of you were born exactly 3 minutes apart." Silence filled the room. Mrs. Kim slowly placed the files on the desk. I don't think this is a coincidence anymore. That evening, she contacted both Amina and Taijun separately and asked them to meet her at the school the next morning. Neither parent knew the other had received the same call. The next morning, Amina arrived first. A few minutes later, a familiar black luxury sedan pulled into the parking lot. Taejun stepped out. For the first time in 6 years. There was nowhere to walk away. Mrs. Kim welcomed them into her office. The twins sat quietly beside each other. She placed both birth records on the desk. I think it's time everyone tells the truth. Neither parent spoke. Finally, Amina broke the silence. They're twins. Noah looked at Ha-yoon. Ha-yoon looked at Noah. Neither child spoke. Neither of them needed to. The answer had been sitting beside them every day. Taejun slowly nodded. We never wanted them separated. His voice cracked for the first time. They were born 10 weeks early. The doctors transferred Noah to another neonatal intensive care unit. Amina continued the story through tears. We tried to stay together. We tried to be strong. But we were grieving. We blamed ourselves. And eventually, we lost each other. Noah quietly reached for Ha-yoon's hand. So, you're really my sister? Ha-yoon smiled through tears. And you're really my brother. Without another word, the twins threw their arms around each other. The room fell silent except for the sound of 2 children crying with happiness. Amina covered her mouth. Taejun lowered his head. For 6 years, their children had unknowingly searched for the missing piece of their lives. And now, they had finally found each other. Noah looked up at his parents. Why didn't you tell us? Neither adult could answer immediately. Finally, Taejun spoke. We thought we were protecting you. Amina nodded. But all we really did was keep our family apart. Ha-yoon stood up. She took her father's hand. Then she reached for Amina's. Noah smiled as he grabbed both of them too. The 2 children gently pulled their parents closer together. You always tell us, Noah said softly, that families should stay together. Ha-yoon smiled. So, why aren't you? The question pierced both adults' hearts. For years they had hidden behind guilt. Behind fear, behind painful memories. But standing between them were the very children they had spent 6 years trying to protect. Taejun slowly looked into Amina's eyes. I'm sorry. She began to cry. So am I. I should have fought harder for us. I should have trusted that we could heal together. He reached for her trembling hand. I never stopped loving you. Fresh tears rolled down her cheeks. I never stopped loving you either. For a moment, no one moved. Then Noah whispered, I think you're supposed to hug now. Everyone laughed through their tears. Taejun stepped forward. Amina met him halfway. For the first time in 6 years, they embraced. It wasn't the embrace of 2 strangers. It was the embrace of 2 people who had finally found the strength to forgive themselves. The twins cheered louder than anyone else. Several weeks later, the family returned to the place where everything had begun. The nursery they had abandoned 6 years earlier had long since disappeared. Instead, the 4 of them stood together beneath the cherry blossom trees outside Seoul Hanuel Elementary School. Noah held his mother's hand. Ha-yoon held her father's. Then, without saying a word, the twins switched sides. Noah reached for Taejun's hand. Ha-yoon slipped her hand into Amina's. The adults looked down in surprise. The children smiled. This feels right, Noah said. It feels complete, Ha-yoon added. Amina looked at Taejun. He smiled back. For the first time in many years, the pain no longer felt stronger than the love. Months later, the family moved into a new home. Not because they wanted to erase the past, but because they wanted a place where all 4 of them could build new memories together. The first thing they placed in the living room wasn't expensive furniture. It was a framed photograph. The 4 of them stood beneath blooming cherry blossoms, smiling exactly as they should have been all along. Every morning after that, Noah and Ha-yoon walked into school side by side. Not just as best friends, not just as classmates, but as brother and sister. And every afternoon, Amina and Jang Tae-jun waited for them together at the same school gate. No more opposite entrances. No more missed chances. No more silent heartbreak. Just one family, finally made whole again. Sometimes life separates the people who belong together. Sometimes pain convinces us that love has been lost forever. But love doesn't always disappear. Sometimes, it simply waits for the right hearts to bring it home. And in this family, those hearts belong to two brave little twins who refused to give up on the people they loved.